tour that was cancelled from a second lockdown, and I was in a pretty dark space and very low. All our work got cut, and I saw that Jenny was offering some online vocal Tai Chi work, and I've been longing to work with her for a while, as my husband had a session with her in London some years ago, and I've been very fascinated by her path and her journey. So it's a real honour to have you here today, Jenny.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Nessi. Hello, everybody. Um, I've been in the group since 4 o'clock this afternoon and following this journey with you all. And Nessi's very kindly given me this hour to take some more steps with you and share my own work. So, what I thought I'd do is divide this hour into 3 parts, and we'll start with some voice. Then I'm going to sing to you. I might sing to you in the opening as well, just to demonstrate what we're going to do. So we'll all work together, and then I'll do a little performance, and then at the end I'll read something from the chapter that is not yet published. So it's a kind of a bit of a preview of that. So I'm going to just share my screen and take you to my Bandcamp page, because that's where I've got a track here that we can use as a bit of a backing track. And we won't quite start yet, but just so that's ready. So what I do in vocal Tai Chi is well, it's a sort of an accumulation from quite a lot of different threads that I've followed over the years, but Nessie was very keen for me to just introduce the sort of the nuts and bolts of the vocal process, this thing called the 4 floors of the vocal house. And it's real. I suppose it's a sort of formless form, or you could say it's a sort of technique without being technical. It's something that sort of opens up the voice in language that anyone can understand. You don't have to be trained in music to understand this. So it's like using a metaphor to give you a map of the landscape of the whole range of your voice. Now, before the break, Nessie was giving you a kind of frequency map with the chakras, with the vowel sounds, the different vowel sounds going up the 7 chakras. And in vocal Tai Chi, and I've drawn this thread through from many different parts of my journey, but it all sort of comes back to this chap. I don't know if you can see his face. This is Alfred Wolfson. And he devised this technique originally, and it was to help him overcome trauma. He was a singing teacher, but he was sent up to work in the First World War as a nurse, and he was in the trenches. And he had a very traumatic experience, obviously, there, and came back and was suffering from shell shock, which, of course, we would now call post-traumatic stress disorder, I guess. And because he was a singer, he wanted to kind of exorcise these sounds that he couldn't get out of his mind, from the sounds of the terrible tragedies of war. And so he started to open up his voice. Now, he did it very carefully over quite a long time, and it all kind of essentialized down to these 4 placements in the voice. And I haven't got time to go into the whole story of Mr. Alfred Wolfson, but it's certainly worth researching, because he had his own students, and there's a long journey there. But I just want to give you an essence today of something that I've held on to from that work and use in vocal Tai Chi as one of the elements. And it's this 4 floors of the vocal house. So if you like, the house has a basement, a ground floor, a first floor, and an attic. And we're going to explore those sounds in our own voices. And there are other floors, there are hidden chambers, and there are all sorts of things underneath the basement, above the attic. But I think if we just start with the 4 floors, you may find, particularly the basement and the attic, these are areas in the voice that are not so familiar. And there's also this stairway between the ground floor and the first floor, which is, if you will, the break in the voice. So that's that place where you go through a kind of a gear change. So it's nice to think of it as a stairway because it can happen a little bit juddery. But that break in the voice is something to also respect and get to know, and can be used as a musical tool as well. So I'm going to just put some vibes on in the background here. This is a track I use all the time to support improvising, and I hope my voice is relatively loud compared to the backing track, and that you can hear everything clearly. Okay? Can you hear me? Can you hear the backing track? Okay, so I can't quite see a way to control the level of the backing track separately, but I think this is good. So this center note of this track, and it remains like a drone. We can just use that to sort of like carpet. We can just settle into that carpet of sound and just bring yourself into that center note. And you may find you want to do it with the R sound, or you just want to hum it. Or you may want to find a harmony that feels more relaxed for you. You just find the note that works for you. Okay, so what I'm going to do is you just let those notes float into your voice, just let them be there, and I'll just introduce these 4 floors through a kind of song demo, if you like. So here we are, this is the ground floor. This is the ground floor. So I'm working with notes that I could sing with my sort of speech voice. It's sometimes called the chest voice. So here we are in ground floor. I might put a little bit of reverb on. Yeah. So I'm just assuming you're just joining in with your own explore there. So this is the ground floor, ground floor. Okay, but then we can open up into the basement, and that involves opening up the back of the throat as if you were yawning. So could say it was a boomy sound. Basement. Even in a higher pitch, it's still an open-throated sound. You can sort of feel as if you are yawning. Even though you're quite high, basement is a placement. Does that rhyme? Basement is a placement of the larynx, of the back of the throat. So if you go back to the ground floor, you can hear the difference. Ground floor, whereas your basement has this other thicker timbre which is stretching out the back of the throat. Ground floor. Basement. Ground floor. Basement. And you hear how different those sounds are, even though it's the same pitches. This is to do with timbre, this is to do with color, the color of the sound. How can you change the texture, the color, the timbre of the sound? It's these timbres that give so much variation in how we express our vocal palette. So you can actually blend the basement and the ground floor. That's a little bit advanced, so we'll go to that maybe another time. But if you like, those two sounds are the basis of the basement and the ground floor. Now you can put a lot of emotion and energy into those sounds. At the moment, I'm doing them quite neutrally. But if you wanted to get into the kind of expressive energy of those sounds, there's a wide, wide universe there. But before we go there, let's look upstairs. So we've got to go up this stairway from the ground floor to the first floor. So here we are in ground floor. Up that stairway. Now all sorts of things happen on that stairway. Here we are in the first floor. First floor. But you heard what happened on that stairway. It was a bit of a rough ride across that break. That's completely natural. And just allow it to be there, really. And eventually you can use it as an effect, or you can sort of divert your way around it if you'd rather not use it as an effect. So here's that journey again from the ground floor up to the first floor. You can just make your own little phrases following me or weave with me. And as you push the notes up the scale gently, you'll find that naturally a break happens. Here I am in first floor. Somebody joining in there on the mic. Could we have everyone muted, please? Thank you. So, yeah, let's do that one more time. We'll go from the ground floor up the stairs. See what happens as you get to the top of the ground floor and it wants to flip. Flip's quite a good word for it. Or jump into first floor. And just open up to that flipping and that jumping and allow it to flicker in and out. I think sometimes we have a sense that there's a mistake going on there, but it's really a very natural physiology of the voice. And I think if we can come to understand the break and be friends with the break and not think that we're sort of failing if we kind of stumble a bit on the break. It's actually, in some cultures, considered the sort of highest expressive moment of the music, because it has tension and intensity about it. So here we go again, from the ground floor to the first floor, up the stairs, through the break. Track's just running out, so I'm going to just pull it back a bit. So how are you getting on with the break? Just maybe write a couple of comments in the chat if you want. What are you discovering? It's a very interesting sort of shadow side of the voice that is often overlooked. But it can and does have a powerful place in everybody's voice and can be used to good effect. So, for example, let's do it and make something of it this time. So this time we'll go from the basement to the ground floor, up the stairs and into the first floor. There we are at the top of the first floor. now there's a kind of a narrowing of sound. I'm going to try and narrow that sound right into the attic. And that actually means that we lift the soft palate and we go into a nasal sound. Now, nasal sound, which actually means the sound stops coming through the mouth and actually comes out the nose. And that gives a totally different timbre. And is slightly jarring if you're not used to it, but it's considered sort of the height of beauty in, say, for example, Chinese music, where they work a lot with more nasal sounds. It's sort of coming out the nose, and a good vowel to work with is the E vowel. It should all be sort of clearing out the pipes and giving your voice a good wakey wakey. Narrowed right down into this sort of nasal, laser nasal space. Even do kind of quite low sounds. Letting the gruffness come in there a little bit, because I quite like a bit of gruffness sometimes. And it gives that kind of... There's a drama there, you know? So that is really the fundamentals of the vocal Tai Chi language, and I've just given you the kind of skeleton. I haven't put any flesh on the bones. I've just given you something that is a kind of useful map. I'm going to stop the backing track now. Sorry, it's just going to cut out. Boom, boom. It just cuts out like that. I haven't quite got the volume control on that. But yeah, that's sort of like the bare bones of a musical map that gives you a lot of range and color to work with. So perhaps you would just put in the chat what you discovered, maybe just what did you discover in any of those different placements, the basement, the ground floor, the first floor, and the attic. Not every single one of those areas will be as accessible as the other. You might, I was a bit lost in that bit, or I really felt strong in that bit. So it's just, as I can see some of you are journaling, you know, it's just like giving you sort of vocal data to work with. Obviously, if you're going to put expression into all that, you've suddenly got this primary colours of this palette of primary colours, and you can start to really inflect your music with some of these colours, and gives you more knowledge of what you can do to shape and to infuse your singing with these enriching qualities of timbre. And of course, I've just given you sort of literally the primary colours, but there are, you know, infinite spectrum of subtleties that one can start to pull out and nurture once you've started to work on that kind of approach, and almost like it's like a language. So I'm going to pause on that introduction. I'm going to go to the next section of my presentation, and I hope you found that practical and useful. And as we go into this next section, you'll be able to hear me sort of demonstrate the expressive potential of some of that work within my own voice. Have been using it for some time in a piece I'll play to you, and then I'm going to read a bit from this chapter which goes into some of the thinking behind this in more detail. So thanks for following me on this journey. And I was just contemplating this afternoon, how am I going to connect a creative presentation, a bit of music that I've made up, with what is effectively a sort of semi-academic idea that I've tried to write about in this Routledge book. I mean, I think it's quite good that Routledge are exploring this kind of content, because they're sort of an academic publication, and I've not held back on talking about consciousness and healing in what I've written in the chapter, and I hope they accept it. It's not published yet, but it is contracted to them, so it will be published in some form, though I don't exactly know what. And I'll read it on the basis of that it is forthcoming and therefore not signed off yet by Routledge. It's still in work in progress, but I'd love to read some of it to you. But before we do that, I'll sing to you a bit of a song. And I thought, how am I going to connect the song and the chapter? And I thought, I know how I can do that. In the chapter, I quote some very famous musicians like Billie Holiday, John Cage, Philip Glass, Duke Ellington, and there are some other people in there as well. And I thought I'll take some of the quotes from the chapter and I'll just put them into a piece of music, and I'll just use them as part of a jam that I'll do on the looper. So you'll hear some of the quotes that will then appear in the chapter. So this is a piece, and I've called it Odyssey. What else am I going to call it? And so here we go. No, 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 no.
As a human being, don't play what's there. Play what's not there. What we play is life. The idea of a mistake is beside the point. For once anything happens, it authentically is. A hero ventures forth from the world of common day into a region of supernatural wonder. Fabulous forces are there encountered, and a decisive victory. I'm gonna sing like someone else. I don't need to sing at all. The hero comes back from this mysterious adventure with the power to bestow boons on his fellow man. Improvisation is the expression of the accumulated yearnings of the soul. But when is it therapy and when is it art?
la kurate sharuate ayate ataya wataya lo la kashtayora
common day into a region of supernatural wonder. Fabulous forces are there encountered. Decisively.
Thank you. So I'm going to read now, and I hope this enriches what has happened so far, gives a little more breadth to it. So, Beyond Music Workshops, a composer and a community. And a quote from Nadia Boulanger, who is a composer, was a composer and a teacher, and she was born in 1887 and she died in 1979. And it says, "Music can never be more or less than who you are as a human being." So, in my second year in 1982 as a music composition student, I suddenly had a very surprising experience. I was suffering from acute anxiety when, to my amazement, one day, something in me profoundly shifted, opening up perceptions of reality beyond my wildest imaginings. I had had what I think was a spiritual awakening. It was the beginning of a lifelong inquiry into consciousness through meditation, chanting, books, teachings, Tai Chi, yoga, and of course, music. I continued on my path as a musician, and perhaps inevitably, over the years, the two subjects, music and consciousness, have overlapped. So I'm just going to jump now. I'm going to jump right into the section which in a way picks up from what Nessi has been talking about in the first section of the workshop, about working with resistance and moving through resistance with your voice. So this just jumps in as part of the description of the workshop in vocal Tai Chi. So here we go. As edges are met. So this vocal Tai Chi, sorry, I should just say, works with people in a group, and then after the tea break we work one-to-one with the microphone. So you get to do what I'm doing and use that backing track that you heard and other tracks. So you step up in front of the group and you sing solo from nothing. And this is what happens. As edges are met, the soloist goes deeper, allowing new material to be voiced. The importance of a witnessing workshop family audience cannot be overestimated in supporting each solo singer in the process of making vocal discoveries and unearthing the bones of a raw, authentic language. New music is heard, edges are faced, and singers often touch a place in themselves that was formerly unknown, much to the delight and encouragement of the listening participants. Specific sonorities in the notes themselves are often the key to opening up this process. There may be a major vocal release, like a geyser shooting out hot water and steam, or it can be a slow lifting of the veil. A paradox as a subheading. This spontaneous flow of the voice may take singers by surprise, especially if it's not usual for them to sing freely in front of others. There is a paradox. As resistances are encountered, opportunities arise for more of the voice to emerge. The sounds may stumble, tighten, harden, it may tremble, break or disappear. There may be dullness or force. My voice may be held as a concept, a fantasy or an attachment. What does the singer do? It's a stopping point or even a breaking point. But it can also be a new starting point, as this is only the edge of the unknown. Some parts of a more complete spectrum of the whole voice may only be found by crossing this unknown vocal bridge, where missing sounds are then found on the other side. As composer Philip Glass said, if you don't know what to do, there's actually a chance of doing something new. Right and wrong have already been redeemed in the first half of the workshop, so that is no longer an excuse for resistance or self-judgment. After that, the singer only has their sound, their voice, their life in its present state. As John Cage, the American composer, said, "The idea of a mistake is beside the point, for once anything happens, it authentically is." It may not all happen in one session, though a lot often does, but step by step, hidden layers of the voice, the person, and their music are uncovered. The process nearly always garners vivid, inspired, or intimate and vulnerable free singing. Over time, I began to feel it was a pity that not more people could hear this new music. Now, when you stand alone at the microphone in front of the group, the microphone is a symbolic icon of performance and can offer a challenge as well as support. It interrupts the safety of the workshop circle as the singer stands alone in front of the group to sing, some people's worst nightmare. Singers may find themselves welling up and shedding a tear, and then, with my support, singing through tears. All present in the room naturally help hold the emotions and the soundings with the singer by simply being there. As Billie Holiday said, "If I'm gonna sing like someone else, then I don't want to sing at all." Free of the composed songs of others, people aim towards their own honest music. Okay, subtitle, Grief Tending. Grief Tending. An example of the intensity of the process is when Sarah, not her real name, had just lost her brother. She stood shyly in front of the microphone. The backing track encouraged a musical starting point and spacious atmosphere. Her voice moved from within an unsettled silence, sounding rasping, short outbreaths, half-pitched tones, and then slowly to deeper in-breaths that slowly built up as she found herself singing in pitched and musically shaped cries. She unbound her grief in expansive, climbing phrases beyond her control, and yet she was guided by her own felt sense. Her burden of loss was relieved, and her sadness filled with darkly rich vocal timbres, full of melancholy and love. She found her vocal truth and power and sent it out to the group, her brother, and beyond. Eventually she returned to smaller expressions, recovering, stuttering sequences, and then a gentle, settling melody. She was silent. Her awareness expanded into a deeper sense of self, and stillness descended. By opening up herself and her voice, and to all present, she was able to come to some peace. The group were clearly moved, and the field in the room was palpable. These psycho-musical states that people often find themselves in can bring them fully in touch with deeper truths within themselves, reflected naturally in their spontaneous singing. Honest music. I have seen that vocal Tai Chi can unearth the honestly improvised songs of people's lives. It unlocks a mix of creative performance and therapeutic outcomes and allows adult singers and so-called non-singers to create their music out of the box, unself-consciously. The work can help people across an unknown vocal bridge and can even become a rite of passage. The arrival on the other side is a time where the singer is met enthusiastically by the listening group who expand joyously in celebration of the singer's arrival and feel a part of her arrival. In bearing witness to an individual's right, all receive the gift of her journey. She becomes the catalyst. Audience catharsis arises. She finds her new voice, heals others in the room, and potentially even beyond the room, as well as herself. The integrative approach found in vocal Tai Chi was to be taken further in stage 5. I was itching to put the work in a public concert form. One day I clocked that conduction, which is conducting with signals, might be a way to do that. I called auditions for creative professional singers and formed a conduction choir. Okay, I see we've got 10 more minutes. I'm just going to read this last bit. Okay, this last bit is about the choir, and I'm reflecting on what's the difference between therapy and art in these situations. Because I was asked, the editor of the book asked me, when is it therapy and when is it art? And I was like, oh, that's a provocation. If ever there was one, I'm going to try and attend to it. So this section is called Boundaries. And the name of the choir is the Improvisers Choir, and its anagram is TIC, T-I-C. In a TIC pre-concert talk, Helen Miners, the editor of this book, asked me, when is it therapy and when is it art? Psychotherapy requires confidentiality and happens behind closed doors, full stop. But when therapy is involved in the arts, there is a potential for crossing over, in making something that it may be shared. But how does this question relate to my work? In vocal Tai Chi, workshop participants spend 2 hours together before improvising their naked solos. It is a private group, around 8 people, and it is safe to lose control for a moment, weep or roar, stutter, be confused, and fold that back into the music. There may be creative pain involved. A fluid relationship between the voice itself And a good understanding of the voice map and creativity can ultimately take the improvisation into a high level of free vocal music. Behind the closed door of vocal Tai Chi, art is there, so is therapy. In the public concerts with the choir, 30 to 100 people in the audience, there are no moments of outward overwhelm or confusion from the performers, but there is a parallel complexity similar to vocal Tai Chi. Consider conducting and singing from nothing with no song or no score in public in a small choir, 8 to 12 voices, is edgy work. No matter how experienced the singers, and in tick they are experienced, there is a not knowing in the room as the performance starts. It's not unlike Joseph Campbell's hero's journey, although in the choir's cases there are multiple heroines and heroes living through it together, not just a single hero. And then Joseph Campbell describes it. A hero ventures forth from the world of common day into a region of supernatural wonder. Fabulous forces are there encountered, and a decisive victory is won. The hero comes back from his mysterious adventure with the power to bestow boons on his fellow man. Slightly old-fashioned language. It is a focused process as individual intentions and inventions are balanced with the sensitivity of being together in the group. As the sound worlds are built, fabulous forces may well be met. As in vocal Tai Chi, some creative pain is involved. One listener said it was a quest of the soul that she felt each singer was pursuing. Rather like Miles Davis said, "Don't play what's there, play what's not there." The music is open to receive. Sometimes it loses its way, gets stuck, but that's part of encountering those fabulous forces. If met well, the music finds a way to include the lostness, singing in the dark, welcoming the unknown. Both in vocal Tai Chi and in the choir's project, art and therapy seem to have coalesced, and through their combined chemistry, a degree of awakening to a more vivid and holistic vocal consciousness seems to be possible. Thank you.
Oh, Jenny, thank you so much for that beautiful reading and for your work, for sharing some aspects of the vocal Tai Chi. I was getting kind of flashbacks actually to my session with you when you were reading your passage and talking about the girl that lost her brother, and it just kind of, I was kind of recalling my own journey of grief in a way, which is what I was kind of expressing. And thank you. Thank you so much for being here with us today and for sharing.
My pleasure and honour.
Yeah, it's just so much wisdom, Jenny, really, to have you and to share your path. You've been on this journey for a very long time, and I really take a deep bow to all that you've been through and worked through. And I really hope at some point I get to work with you in the physical realm. And I'm sure there's many women here that are really eager and excited to find out more about your work and stay connected to you. There was one question actually, and I hope you don't mind us just revisiting that before we come to a close, but there was a couple of women just asking if you could just recap very briefly on, when you spoke about the first house, where that's located in the body. There were just a few questions about that, and I was wondering if you'd be happy to just to briefly go over it.
Okay, yeah. I was trying to squeeze a lot into a short space of time, so apologies if that wasn't clear. I mean, that's that's the thing about those. Then that's the thing about those placements, is that they stretch across large expanses of the body. They're not just located in one particular place. So it's quite different in a way from the idea of sounds being associated with one part of the body, but they are sort of flexible, malleable, fluid spaces. But they are, if you like, let's say, for example, in the basement, I mean, the belly comes to mind, just put the sound on to make it cool. This basement sound. When I work with people in session, we go towards the power of the basement. And it's often a sound that is quite taboo for women. So it can bring up powerful feelings, and they are belly feelings, and sometimes they're to do with grief and loss and rage. And so I do believe that the basement is largely below the center of the body. Okay, that's your proper raw sound, okay? That's your proper basement going into emotion. So when I gave it to you in the first bit of the session, I was just trying to work with, let's just try and find the shape of it rather than get into the power of it. But as you can see, there's loads of power and loads of height, as well as range in the basement. There's range in all the sounds. That's why I can't just say they're associated with one place. So in the ground floor, of course, I could go on about the basement for hours, but in the ground floor, similarly, it's a different placement of the larynx. It's more closed in the basement. It's associated with the speech voice. But you can get a heck of a lot of power and subtlety. It's all there, The universe is in each placement. The whole universe is in each placement. But let's look at this ground floor. Okay, it's like, conventionally they call it chest voice. Bit belting, this thing in musical theatre, they have belting. That's kind of your ground floor belting kind of sound, but ground floor can also be really mellow. Okay, so it's got that whole range, it's the expressive space. So then you go up the stairs, and I talked very briefly about the break. We can go deeply into the break, and you can find a lot of hidden secrets in the break. A lot of magic and mystery in the break. So hold on to your hats. Let's do a little bit of that. Kind of thing. That's break. And it's just moving everywhere. You're out of control, and yet at the same time, you're finding this freedom and this unpredictable flow of sound that just the voice does it on its own, And then you go up. That's the top of the stairs. You get into the first floor, which is conventionally called head voice. We're calling it first floor, which can have so much, from the operatic first floor to, the kind of poppy first floor poppy sound. Yeah, or, you know, the operatic end of the spectrum. So, but you're all heady. And you can sometimes find those things by coming at it from the attic. So, for example, the other day I was working with somebody who had decided that her high voice was kind of quite narrow, really, and she couldn't find any more to it. So it's kind of, what she was singing a Sanskrit, drupe, da, da. Can't remember quite what the Sanskrit word was. It began with D. Darga, I think it was. Darga. I said, look, if you get into the attic and come down from the attic towards the first floor, you're going to get more power. So she started saying, what do you mean? I said, and then you open it up. So she kind of found this way of pulling open the voice from above, where she didn't know that it was there, but she didn't know she could attend to it from another place. And then it all started to expand, and suddenly she was like some diva in the Royal Opera House, you know. So it was a simple adjustment to get her to have a totally different perception of what her high voice could do. And then, as I mentioned, the attic, which is this nasal sound, which in China is, you know, I remember seeing the Peking Chinese opera at Sadler's Wells in the 80s. Never forget the sound. I mean, I'm just messing around, okay? I'm improvising. But that is part of the beauty. They see that as the height of beauty. I can see a Chinese person or some Asian person in the audience. I hope that is not any kind of offense to what your sense of it is. But that was my impression, that there was something powerful and something, they found it very beautiful, that sound. So when I was in Indonesia, I was singing with the women in the funeral pyres. This is their color, this is their color, this is where they hang out. You know, in the West, they probably hear our sound as really soggy. You know, classic kind of pop sound. They go, how soggy is that? You know, I mean, it's just a different understanding of what taste is, depending on what culture you're coming from. You know, okay, so that's my little expansion of all that. Thank you very much.
That is amazing, Jenny. I literally could listen to you for hours. You are literally like just a huge portal of knowledge, and it's really, I mean, I'm reading the comments here, and it is literally mind blowing. You know, the way you're kind of your understanding with the voice and the kind of angle you come from. It's so beautiful, and I feel quite deeply moved listening to you, and also when you read your passage from that book, it's really, I feel like we are in such great hands with you. And I'm reading the comments, everyone's just like, oh my god, this is incredible, and it really is. It is a blessing to have you. Thank you for saying yes to being on this journey, and for inspiring us, and giving us such a new angle of this approach. And in the closing email, just to let everybody know, there'll be information of how you can stay connected to Jenny and to her work. She has all different platforms, you've Bandcamp, and also some other links that I'll add, that you can kind of stay connected with her. And thank you so much, Jenny. It's really incredible to have you. I feel my head is literally blown at the moment. Like, okay, how do we move forward from here?
Oh, it's my absolute pleasure. Lovely
Oh,
to share with you all and to see your smiling faces. Thank you so much.
thank you, Jenny. You're amazing. Absolutely love your work and what you stand for. And I'm going to get that book also. When that book comes out, I definitely want to have a copy of that. It just sounds incredible. Thank
Yeah,
you.
I'd just love to say one thing about that book is that it is largely a sort of academic survey of women in musical leadership because it's been so rare. There have been so few. And it's the fact that I've actually managed to get into it and talk about this kind of content is kind of, I think it's a bit of a coup. I'm quite chuffed that I'm in it because I think a lot of it's going to be quite dry and academic. But I hope if you do get it, it would really support the cause. So
Yeah,
thank you. I can send information about that too.
please do, Jenny, please. And your passage, everything you read was definitely not dry and academic. It was just like so incredible and poetic, also so poetic. I was thinking actually it would be so lovely to have you on an audio book. Just can have your voice carrying us through, you know. Thank you, Jenny. Thank you for your time. Thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing your incredible work. And we absolutely love you and so
Oh,
grateful, absolutely grateful for your offerings and for who you are and how far you've come and to share this wisdom.
bless you.
Thank you, darling.